Hey guys, it's Soda here, welcome back to another video. Today I want to talk about fish bowls. Now I have talked about fish bowls quite a lot on my channel, to be honest. If you guys are not new to the channel, you've probably heard me talk about them quite a few times. But I wanted to just make a whole video talking about fish bowls because although most of you guys who are already regulars of my channel would already know that they're bad, most people still don't know that they're bad. I very commonly see people still using fish bowls on TikTok all the time. It's kind of a trend sometimes to like impulse buy an animal on TikTok for some reason, and a lot of the times it involves getting a fish, a betta fish or a goldfish, and putting it in a fish bowl. And also it's pretty like it's a stereotype, right, to keep like a goldfish in a fish bowl. You see it on like cartoons all the time, and even still now you see it on movies and stuff like that. So to most people that don't know much about fish, they just assume that fish bowls are fine, which I feel like we've all thought that at some point when we were kids and stuff. We just assumed they were fine. I really wanted a fish bowl when I was a kid. Thankfully I never had one, but I always wanted one because, you know, they were on like Elmo's World and stuff like that, and I think Cat in the Hat too. So I wanted to make a whole video talking about it, and also for anyone who's like new to my channel, and maybe just searching up things about fish bowls or something, they're getting their first fish maybe, and you want to know more about it. So we're going to talk about fish bowls today and why they are so bad, because a lot of people, when I do talk about fish bowls, you know, they assume it's just a space issue, which it is, but there's a lot more to it than just being too small for fish. So I'm going to try and talk about everything that I know is a problem with fish bowls. I think they are a really big problem, and I think that they should be illegal to use for fish everywhere in the world. Thankfully, they are actually illegal in a lot of countries in like Europe, which goes to show how bad they are. They're actually illegal because they're considered abusive in a lot of countries, which is very cool. I hope that more countries start to do that as well. Here in my country, New Zealand, fish bowls aren't illegal, but they don't sell them at pet stores here. And also, pet stores won't sell you a fish if you use a bowl, but they aren't technically illegal. I still see people selling goldfish and bowls on like Facebook Marketplace and stuff like that, but they're definitely way less common here, which is nice. But I know in like America and stuff, you can still buy fish bowls at pet stores. You can get teeny tiny ones, you can get big ones, which is really unfortunate. And also I'm wearing the appropriate hoodie today. This is one of my merch designs. Makes sense for this video, so of course I had to wear it. I think that fish are probably one of the most abused pets, because unfortunately there's just so many misconceptions about fish that it just becomes so normalized. I think people don't realize goldfish and all fish in general are actually really intelligent. Goldfish are social animals. They even become depressed when they're alone. People just think that they're decorations with 3-second memories, which isn't true, by the way. They have very good memory, actually. Fish bowls started as a decoration. They never were made with the intent to benefit fish or anything. It was just made to display a pretty looking fish in a bowl in your house as a decoration. Fish bowls are still commonly shown in cartoons and movies, so it's not really surprising that people still assume that they're fine. And I'm also not trying to make you feel better or anything if you have used a fish bowl before. I'm not trying to shame anyone or anything, because, you know, we all make mistakes. And if you genuinely like didn't know it was bad, I'm not surprised, because most people don't know that they're bad. We can't change the past, but I do think it's important to learn from your mistakes. Now, so like the biggest reason we all kind of know fish bowls are bad is because they're very small. People assume that fish don't need much space because they're small, so they put them in these little bowls with nothing in there, and usually the fish doesn't live very long. Sometimes they do, and that still doesn't mean that your fish is happy, by the way. I also get comments like that a lot telling me their fish is happy because it's alive and it's lived in this bowl for like 5 or 10 years, which I find very hard to believe. But if that's true, that doesn't mean that they're happy. Fish, especially goldfish, they are very hardy fish. They can handle a lot of abuse, which is unfortunate for them. Living isn't thriving. Goldfish can live up to 30 years, by the way, so living 5 years in a bowl isn't even really that impressive, to be honest. So goldfish are a carp. They get very big, especially common goldfish or comet goldfish. They get the biggest, which is unfortunate because they're usually the ones keeping the bowls the most, I feel like. They can get super big. They can get like the size of your dinner plate or even bigger sometimes. But because they don't grow if you keep them in a tiny bowl, people assume they just stay that small, but they don't. They just become stunted. There's also a misconception that goldfish will grow to the size of the tank. which I mean, I guess is technically true, but the only reason they don't grow anymore is because you're stunting their growth by keeping them in a small bowl or tank. Of course they're not going to grow anymore if you're forcing them to not be able to. It can shorten their lifespan a lot and cause a lot of health issues, deformities even. This can happen to pretty much all animals if they're kept in too small of an environment. They can become stunted, which causes a shortened lifespan, deformities, health issues, etc. We just kind of tend to ignore it when it happens to fish because, you know, they're small, which means they don't have any feelings, right? The other problem with bowls is you can't actually fit the things you need for a fish to thrive in the bowl. They're way too small to fit a filter, which every fish needs filtration in their tank, and then tropical fish need a heater in their tank, but again, you can't fit a heater in a bowl. I would demonstrate it for you, but I don't own a bowl. Heaters are like about this big. This is probably like a small size heater right here, which isn't gonna fit in a bowl. You have to like kind of curve it in there and just, yeah. And then a filter, even like a small one's about this big. This would be a small filter, but most of mine are about that big. But a small one's about that big, and that still wouldn't fit in a bowl either, because bowls are like sometimes this small, sometimes bigger. Either way, it can't fit. And I still think, even if you have a fully planted tank, I still think it's beneficial to have a filter. I think everyone should have a filter in their tank. That's just my opinion. And don't even tell me they don't have filters in the wild, because, yeah, they don't have filters because the water is constantly moving. It's flowing, and it's massive. Like, you can't even compare it. I hate that argument. You cannot compare it to the wild. The wild has natural filtration, which is why we have filters, to create artificial filtration, because obviously we can't replicate their environment to be exactly the same as the wild, but we can do what we can, okay? I can't believe I've heard that many times before. Another thing is, it's very important to cycle your fish tank before you get fish. Fish do need specific water conditions, and that's really hard to manage in a bowl, which most people don't even do. They just kind of put a bowl in some tap water, don't even dechlorinate it either, and then surprised the fish doesn't last a week. It's very important to dechlorinate the water and go through the nutrient cycle before actually putting any fish in there. Cycling your fish tank is basically the process of creating beneficial bacteria in the water, which basically means, so like when your fish poop or when there's leftover food in the water they don't eat, it basically creates ammonia, which is poisonous to fish. And without cycling your aquarium, it doesn't have anything to break that ammonia down, so it just has a spike of ammonia and probably will kill your fish or stress the fish out, cause ammonia burn and stuff like that. If you're keeping a fish in a tiny little bowl, it's very hard to keep that cycle stable because there's not really enough water to create a proper cycle. Every time you do a water change, you're probably going to be taking out most of the water in there because it's so small. Fish produce a lot of waste, especially goldfish. They are the messiest fish ever, that even if you try to cycle a bowl, I don't think it would really work. I think a cycle would just crash because fish would be creating too much waste, wouldn't be able to break it down fast enough. And I know this might sound confusing if you don't know what the nutrition cycle is, which I don't really want to talk too much about because it's not really what this video is about. So I'm going to link some videos down below about the nutrition cycle if you want to know more about that, because it's a little bit difficult to talk about, but it's something that's very important. You should definitely learn about if you're planning on getting fish, or if you don't know what it is and you already own fish. Definitely everyone should know about it. And I pretty much say that in every video I've made about fish, is to learn about the nutrition cycle, get a water testing kit, and make sure your fish tank's actually cycled, water levels are actually good before you get any fish. And this can be a long process, especially if it's your first time, but in a bowl I don't think it's really possible to keep a stable cycle, which basically means if you're not doing daily full water changes, your fish is just going to be swimming in its own ammonia-filled filth. So basically your fish will just be poisoned in its own waste, and I think that's usually why fish die so quickly in bowls, because it just has a massive ammonia spike as soon as you add a fish in there. Another reason fish die quickly in bowls is because bowls have a very small surface area. So let's say this is the top of the water. It's a very small surface area, sometimes smaller than this, and then the water goes down like that. So it's got a lot of water, but a very small surface area. So only a little bit of oxygen is actually getting into the water, which often means a fish will actually suffocate because there's not enough oxygen in the water. And because you can't also put a filter in there which creates water movement, which helps put more oxygen in the water, or an air pump, you see those bubbles there? Since this is a goldfish tank, it's always good to have lots of oxygen flow, so I have two different air bubblers in there as well as a filter. Goldfish especially need quite a lot of oxygen compared to other fish, which means you need a lot of surface movement at the water. So even in this tank, potentially if I didn't have much water movement, there wouldn't be enough oxygen in here, which is a pretty horrible way to die. And often you'll see fish in bowls or small tanks or tanks without filters. They'll be gasping at the surface because they're desperately trying to get air. And then we have the actual shape of the bowl. So if you have ever used a fish bowl, even if you haven't used it for fish, if you've used it, like if you filled it up with water and put something in it, you probably know that it makes everything look really warped and kind of messed up, which is why I don't understand people like bowls. And sometimes, I mean, for me anyway, if I look at a bowl, it kind of hurts my eyes because it's hard to really focus on anything because everything's really warped, and it honestly, I hate looking at like curved glass because it just hurts my eyes. Well, the same thing happens to fish. Imagine that, they're living in a room where everywhere they look is warped. Actual torture. Could you imagine that? So this can actually cause them to get stressed out, or to panic, or to feel like they're being chased by a predator constantly because it's go round and round. So it's pretty horrible to think about, honestly. Even if you somehow had a giant bowl for fish and try to say that that was good because it's huge and it has filtration, they still have a distorted vision, which is why I just don't think we should have any fish bowls in general. I don't think there's any way you can make a fish bowl safe for fish. So basically, simplified version of this, fish bowls are basically a death chamber for your fish, and even if they do survive, they will not be happy. Even in general, small fish tanks are way harder to actually care for than big fish tanks. Since bowls and stuff are so tiny that even just a little bit of fish waste in there can create a big spike of ammonia because there's just no room in there to like have anything to break that down. And then because there's so much shit in there, you're gonna have to be cleaning this constantly because it's gonna probably turn very cloudy. It's probably gonna grow algae easily as well. It's just gonna be gross, which is why fish bowls usually look pretty gross after a week because they're hard to clean. So really, there's no benefit to it. Definitely not for the fish, that's for sure. Please just get a proper fish tank that's appropriate size for the fish that you want, and do a lot of research on the specific fish requirements because every fish does have different requirements. So yeah, if you ever wonder why us people in the fish community hate fish bowls so much and why sometimes people get a lot of hate if they post a fish in a fish bowl, this is why. I think we're just all kind of sick of it at this point. And I know it's sometimes, you know, shit happens, pet store employee might give you the wrong information, but it's important to do your own research as well. You can't just rely on pet store information. To be completely honest, a lot of pet store employees aren't really taught actually how to care for animals, which isn't really their fault either. I don't blame them, I just blame the companies. A lot of companies don't really teach their employees the appropriate way to care for a lot of animals, which sucks, and I hope they get better. In my country, they're actually really good at a lot of pet stores. They actually ask you if your tank cycle before you buy any fish. They ask you how big your fish is, what kind of fish you have, etc. So I really hope that it becomes more of a thing in other countries too, because I know whenever I say that, people are like so shocked at how good our pet care is, which, I mean, we have a lot of issues here. We don't have very good laws when it comes to animal abuse, but there are some things that we do well, so I'm grateful for that. So yeah, I really hope this video could be helpful if you didn't know any of this info. Again, not trying to shame anyone if you've ever used a bowl and didn't know, because you know, shit happens, obviously, like, we all make mistakes, but now you can learn from those and also help teach other people about why bowls are bad as well. And hopefully, slowly but surely, we can make it more normalized, people to know how shitty bowls are. I also sometimes wonder if like me wearing this hoodie around makes people stop and look at it and think, I wonder what's wrong with bowls, and then maybe they Google it or something. Not trying to just promote my merch, by the way, you don't have to buy it or anything like that. You just can spread the word. I'm just saying, you know, I wonder if this helps at all. I hope it does. But thank you guys so much for watching this video. If there's anything else you want me to make videos on next, feel free to let me know. I have made more videos like just specifically on goldfish care and even betta fish care. Those are a bit older, I think, but you can watch those if you want. And yeah, let me know. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next video. Bye!